If you own horses, then you know that good fencing, particularly in confined areas like yards, is critical for their welfare and critical for your budget should injuries occur. Today, we're doing up some old yards and making them horse-proof and foal-proof, and I'm going to be doing it with renowned horse vet Kurt Enzinger and getting a few tips and tricks from him along the way as to what to look for and what not to do with horse fencing. Don't forget, if you like this kind of topic, hit the subscribe button. Now let's get going and put some great Australian made and owned and manufactured horse products onto these yards. The stars of the show today obviously are going to be the equine mesh from Murray, Australian made, on the banks of the Murray River, and their horse gate, which is super strong and really up to the job of protecting your best investment, your horse. So Kurt, first things first, mate, we're going to get rid of the old farm gate. You've got a little bit of concern with using gates like this with horses.
Yeah, Tim, the spaces here are too big for the horses, and
Yep.
The bigger the space, the more force they can put on them, and then they end up pulling the wires off.
They can stake themselves on that, I suppose.
Yeah, and the longer the wire, the more they can bend it, and then it just distorts the gate further and further. But basically, it's just a hazard for them to get their feet caught in there.
This gate's been bent a few times as well. You don't have radiused welds on this one. The pipes are squashed flat in the construction, and you've had to rebend this gate a number of times.
Yes, Tim. Yeah, we've had to have it off a couple of times, and I just drive the car over it or the tractor and straighten her up.
Well, there's a solution for everything, isn't there? Well, we're going to put a better gate on this so you don't have to use your car.
Great.
So without further ado, on with the speed dealers, because we're dealing with wire. Let's cut this open and start rolling it out. The end of the roll always comes pre-stripped, so you've got a ready tie-off point. Get going and do the job properly. It's really important to tie off your equine mesh to your end posts as well. I know it can be very tempting just to fold it around the post and staple it on. What happens over time, if you do that, is that the whole fence becomes loose because the wire moves in the staples. The picket wires give way a little bit, and that can lead to injuries. When horses roll and lash their feet out, they can get caught even in small aperture wire. So if you're going to make a horse fence, make it properly, make it safe, tie it off to your posts properly. If you want to have a look at how to do this termination knot, there's a link in the description. Now, because this horse yard is so small, we're actually going to be doing what we call a gut strain in the middle of the wire. We've tied off at two of the corners and we're pulling around another corner. So I'll give you a little tip. If you end up having to pull around a corner and strain wire around the corner, get some lanolin spray like this and give the post a good wet down and grease it right up so it's got a slippery surface to pull the wire around, and you're more likely to get an even tension on both sides. I'm going to strain this up now, and when I finish straining it up, I'm just going to come along and just give it a tap every now and again along the wire and try and get the strain even right round the corner. But having that lanolin spray should do a ripper for a round the corner strain. To tighten the fence up, we've strained it between two strainer boards, and we've done what's called a gut strain, where we've actually cut the belly out of the fence and then joined it up. And by using crimps, we're going to have a very strong result, and it will be barely visible. And more importantly, there's no dags or protrusions in the fence that can snag a young horse, cause a tear in the skin, give you vet problems, and pain and suffering. So if you're looking at using equine mesh, I strongly recommend that you do gut strains and crimp on longer sections and really short, awkward sections. It just gives you a much better result at the end. That's about it, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, just bring them up at your end. Beautiful. By doing the gut strain, we lost barely a chain length of tension. Now what we've got to do is knock out the wedges on the strainer boards, rotate the back plate 90 degrees. Come here, you. And the job's done. If you want to be picky about it, you can come along with a pair of pliers and just take out this strain crimp as well. What Kurt wants is a nice, strong, springy fence. He doesn't want a fence that's going to give and stay given. He wants one that's going to snap straight back. But by having this bounce and give in it, even if a horse does lash out and kick at it, it's just going to bounce and come back and not be damaged. So when you're straining this stuff up, try and take about half of the strain crimps out of the line wires. Leave a little bit of strain crimp left. Don't over tighten it, and you'll end up with this nice spongy trampoline that's ultra safe for horses.
I'm happy with that, Tim.
Well, mate, we're sort of 90% of the way there now, aren't we? Because we've got the fencing right, and fencing's a big issue with horses, isn't it? You see a lot of injuries from particularly prefab mesh that's not the right spec.
Yes, agreed. This is. I'm really happy with this.
What are the things that can happen with horses if you have a larger aperture in your mesh as opposed to equine mesh?
Oh, particularly the foals, smaller hoof can get caught in a smaller hole. So this is really good spacing here. I'm really confident that
it's only a 5 by 10 centimetre spacing, so it's going to have to
great.
be a pretty small hoof to get caught in there. The gate is exactly the same as well, and it's heavy duty, and the good thing about this is it's 2mm thick pipe all the way around, and it's fully galvanised.
Yeah, no, you could tell when you lifted it up.
Yeah, so hopefully these won't bend nearly as quick as your other ones, mate.
Hopefully not.
Now, you've still got a bit of work to do down here on the matting.
Yes.
Rubber matting's not ideal, particularly with young horses, they can slip over. What do you recommend, mate?
I'm either going to look at that GeoHex and put the fines through it, or the Australian concrete mat.
Okay, and try and get a solid base down.
Yep, and then we just normally top it up with a bit of wood chip or bark.
Any other don'ts for a small enclosed yard like this with horses, particularly with young horses?
No, I think the water's out of the way for the foals. We'll probably end up taking that lower rail down so that it's nice and clean all the way inside. It's just trying to remove all those hazards.
Yeah, now I noticed you were being really precise with cleaning up any dags of steel, and you were grinding off the thread that was left over on the gate set and everything else. You take a lot of time and a lot of effort in putting your fences up to make sure that there are no sharp projections at all.
Yeah, I mean, we unfortunately get to see them lodged in horses' feet, and sometimes they can be eaten. So
yeah, okay. So be clinical when you're putting up fences, particularly for horses. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, mate. Good on you.
No worries. Thanks,
mate.
Tim.
I'll come back in a couple of days and we'll see how the new base is handling it, and hopefully we'll get to see some horses using the yard.
No worries. Thank you very much.